Well, there's three kinds of collectors, I say, of presidential memorabilia. There's those guys that like stuff. It's just stuff. And then there's people that collect inauguration material. Everything that they have in their collection has to do with the inauguration itself, which is quite an ordeal. I've been to several inaugurations and inaugural balls, and I mean it's not quite like the Queen of England, but it's a good time. And then there's people like me that like books or autographs and those kind of things. I like to study the life of the people. I like to read books about a president written by people who didn't like him.
Right.
And then I like to read the books about people who did like him, if you can find some. And then I like to read their autobiography.
Yeah.
Because that answers so many questions.
Somewhere in there lies the truth.
Yeah, and in their autobiographies, most of those presidents just tell it the way they see it. I've written my own autobiography, and I had to share with my children that my autobiography is not what they remember or what they think or how they think things were. It's what I remember. It's mine. It's
right.
My autobiography. It's the way I see things, the way I saw things, and so on. And my kids don't particularly like my autobiography, but it's the way I saw it.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what presidents do. I've enjoyed the autobiographies of presidents. It gives you a lot of insight to their lives and their thinking.
What is the best autobiography, in your opinion, of any president?
Well,
who told the best story?
My favorite book written by a president isn't an autobiography. It's written jointly by Jimmy and Rosalynn Carter right after the Carters left the White House. And he talks about what it was like those last few weeks of the campaign. He was a sitting president running for re-election. And his inside pollsters, the people that were his pollsters, not Associated Press or somebody like that, his pollsters came to him about 3 or 4 weeks before the election and said, Mr. President, you not only are going to lose this election, you aren't going to win a single state. And smiling Jimmy Carter had to go out on that campaign trail and smile and keep up the pretense that he was going to
play
be
the game.
He had to go keep everybody encouraged, but down in his heart, he had worked so hard, so many hours every day. He had to do everything.
Right.
And so he worked 16 to 18 hours a day, and he was going to be fired.
Yeah.
By all of the American people.
Yeah.
And it didn't come quite that way. Walter Mondale, his vice president, saved Minnesota, but he lost Georgia, and he lost the District of Columbia and all the rest of the
his
states.
own state. His own state.
So that was an interesting book, as he talked about what it was like to go home to Plains, Georgia. And of course, when we look at Jimmy Carter, we think all the good things he did after he left the presidency, right up until his mid to late 90s, and now he's the oldest living president we've ever had, and he accomplished a lot, maybe more after he was president than when he was president.
He set a good example for what folks can do after serving.
Yeah, he was a good volunteer.
Well, Jack, you've got some things laid out here on the table. Why don't you kind of give us a walkthrough of some of the items you've pulled?
This is kind of stuff, that stuff I talk about. I was at Carter's library dedication, and I'd gone as a guest of the congressman from from Ann Arbor who wasn't going to go. And when I got down there, I had to go to this hotel and go through all this security and get on a bus, and they took me up to Emory University, where the library was going to be. And the library dedication was on a hillside outside the library.
Right.
And it was all roped off, and according to what your role was, is where you were going to sit.
Yeah.
Well, where I was going to sit, I couldn't even see the podium. Well, I had a habit of moving a little bit. When I got up to the rope and I talked to the agent, the security guard there, and we were visiting away, and I was making him feel good and everything, and he turned his head to talk to somebody else, and I was under the rope. And I go down to the next security guard, and I visit the same. By 10 o'clock when it started, I sat in the third row, right next to Hody Carter, one of Jimmy Carter's uncles, and I was right in the middle of the Carter family, and it was so hilarious because the conversation had nothing to do with this library dedication or the President of the United States. It had everything to do with that Amy had dyed her hair, and Rosalind didn't know about it. And all they could talk about is what's going to happen when Rosalind sees Amy. And I thought that was so funny. Here we are at this great opportunity to see all these magnificent people from all over were there, you know.
Absolutely.
And Amy had all the attention. But it was fun. But afterwards, I asked the Secret Service if I could go up on the platform, and they let me go up, and there was this little table, and it had a pitcher of water on it. This was in August, and there was a water glass for the president and a water glass for the former president. But under the president's glass was a napkin with a presidential seal. Well, of course, the glasses had sweat, so it was in a puddle of water. And I asked the Secret Service if I could have that napkin, and here it is. I put it in my coat pocket, brought it home, dried it out, and I have it. Now, that's what I call stuff.
Right.
That's what I call stuff.
But it's a great story.
In '57, they gave out a cigar at the Eisenhower-Nixon inauguration. Now, I call that stuff, see?
Yeah.
But there's people that, they like that kind of stuff. And, you know, if you went to Camp David, you were a guest at Camp David, you got a pack of cigarettes during Eisenhower's administration. They all had, used to give out matchbooks. You had matchbooks from Air Force One and from the helicopter. Here's a Kennedy matchbook. But, of course, nowadays there's no smoking in the White House, so there's no matchbooks.
They might get a little upset if you strike a match in the White House.
I would think you would never have a chance to strike a match in the White House. You got it out of your pocket. I tell people, and you remember during the Trump presidency, people said he lost his marbles. Well, being a businessman, he decided to market it. So right here they are. Here's Trump marbles. Now, I call that stuff, but you could buy Trump marbles. Because he thought, well, if people think I've lost my marbles, I'll make a few bucks on it, you know. So that's what he did. One of the things that a lot of people collect is inauguration stuff, and this is the inaugural badge. When a president's elected, the Metropolitan Police Department comes out with a new badge that they issue to all the police officers, and that's the official badge of the police department in Washington until 12/01, January 20th. When the inauguration occurs, the badge becomes obsolete, and these officers can do what they will with it, and I've managed to collect a lot of those. I think they're pretty neat. But there's a lot of stuff. There's no end to it. I've got thousands of items of stuff here in the library. That's what I call it, stuff.
How many items would you estimate that you have in total?
8,000.
8,000. Yep.
I haven't counted each one, but I've counted enough of them so my boys have been down here and helped me a little bit with it, and we're trying to figure out what we had because we were going to insure it, and we found out that wasn't going to work.
Maybe just in books alone,
there's about 1,000 books, a little over 1,000 books.
Then you've got the golf balls, you have the badges, the buttons.
Yeah.
So
There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
This was kind of an interesting thing. American Express, if you had an American Express card, you paid $25 a month, and every other month they sent you a pewter statue of the president. These were all built and made by one artist. His name is Pedigo, and he's with the Lance Pewter Company, and that's the only place you could get that statue was through American Express.
Okay.
They destroyed the molds. So they made those in the 70s, pretty much all of them in the 70s. And they made them from Washington through Reagan.
Okay.
So the book says. I have never seen a Reagan statue.
Okay.
I'd love to see a Reagan statue, and if somebody ever finds a Reagan statue, they're going to make a lot of money on it if they can get it to me, because I've told people, you just find me that Reagan statue, but I have all the rest of them.
So if anybody out there has a Reagan statue from this set, please let us know.
It took me 8 years to find these.
Yes.
I knew they were in existence, and it took me 8 years to find them.
How many sets of those do you have now?
About 4.
4 sets.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell us a story about the little box there.
Oh, I was at the inaugural ball of George Bush 41, as part of the Republican Inner Circle. My boss paid the money to get me in the Inner Circle, which was a lot of money. And I got down there, and they had a special inaugural ball for us, and we wined us and dined us. We had a luncheon on Inauguration Day with different senators, and it was just a high class thing. It was a black tie, you know. I had to wear a tuxedo. I had to help one of the gals at the hotel help me to figure out how to put that thing on. I'd never wore a tuxedo before. But anyway, I got down there, and it was a lot of fun, and the president came and talked to us and so on. And when we left, they gave us a piece of inauguration cake, and I haven't eaten it. I still got it. In fact, I don't think the mice will even eat it, but it's kind of fun. I call that stuff.
Absolutely.
That's stuff.
It's a great memory and a great story.
But you know, there's so many, and I tell people, I tell them that it costs $25 to take a self-guided tour of the library. But if you'll come down and take a guided tour with me as your guide and hear my stories, it's free. And then I tell them, but you know, most of these things have a story. So it's going to take a while.
It's going to be a 4-hour investment, but it's well worth the time.
We've had busloads of kids come here. We've had all kinds of groups that have come in here, and I enjoy, as you know by now, I enjoy talking about my collection and how much fun we've had. And I want to be sure to emphasize that Darlene has had a big part in this.
Absolutely.
You know, you can't do something like this without a lot of support. And vacations have been planned as to how we can get to the presidential library that's out in Massachusetts or wherever, you know. So she has attended all of these different places I've gone. She's been there with me, and it's been a lot of fun.
That's true love to tolerate and support the passion like this that has taken over the bottom half of your home for years.
Well, you know, she's a kindergarten teacher, so she's used to working with people with little minds, you know, and she knows how to handle me. She knows how to get things done, you know. I've often told young men that there are two kinds of husbands: those that know their wives in control and those that don't. Sooner you figure it out, the happier you're going to be. But it's been 60 years. June will be married 60 years.
Amazing.
She's a wonderful woman.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, thank you for having us here and taking this time to talk about your history with this collection and how this all came to be. So,
can I tell you about my Christmas card?
Absolutely.
This is my first Christmas card from a president. I've got several Christmas cards from presidents. I've got several letters from presidents. But this card, Darlene had it laying on my table by my chair, and I saw it. She said, "Oh, you got a Christmas card from the president. This is President Bush 41. And I thought, well, that's pretty neat. So the next day I got to thinking about that card. I thought, you know, the envelope, that's the valuable part. And so I got home and I said, where's the envelope? She said, when I saw it was from the White House, I was excited. I tore it open. I said, you tore open my card from the president? And she was scraping off the coffee grounds, and she'd thrown it in the wastebasket. But that's my card and envelope. The first one I got. Now, the rest of them are in pretty nice shape. She didn't do that after that.
But the rest of them don't have the story
No,
that this one has.
But that has the... I don't show the rest of them much. I'll tell you, that's the... one other thing I would like to mention to you is that, you know, each segment of a president is the history of our country. And it's amazing to me how different presidents come in and just at the right time. You know, there was Roosevelt during World War II, followed up by Harry Truman, and then Eisenhower. But they had wives.
Yeah.
And their wives were a little unique. Bess Truman didn't want anything to do with Washington and rarely came to Washington. So Harry was in the White House as a bachelor most of the time. Mamie Eisenhower felt that no woman should get up before noon. And she didn't make any public appearances. She didn't care about anything. And so in 1960, in comes Jacqueline Kennedy. And she looked at this White House, the people's house, this magnificent house that was in such deplorable array. And she went out amongst her friends and people that she could have influence on, and raised millions and millions of dollars to restore the White House to its beauty. And she did all kinds of stuff while she was in there in those 3 years. And one of the things she did is she formed the White House Historical Association.
Right.
And that continues today. And one of the things that they started in about 1980 was they did a Christmas tree ornament every year, and they sold it for money for restoring the White House. And on that little half tree on the wall over there, there's an ornament there for every year since 1980. I have every one of them. And I belong to the White House Historical Association. But you know, we needed Jacqueline Kennedy when she came in there.
Right.
And she did a marvelous job. In fact, her husband used to tell, you remember, he accompanied her to places.
Right.
She was the star.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, folks, it's been a great time sitting here with Jack, learning more about his collection. We will be bringing this collection to auction later this year. Stay tuned to epicauctions.com for more information. You can subscribe to our email list on our website, and you can also watch us on our Facebook page.